I want to talk about the last episode of 90 Day Fiancé Happily Ever After with Gino and Jasmine. It starts off with Gino, and he decides to go have lunch with his cousin Dana. And Dana is married to this woman who is very close with Jasmine. Gino's cousin's close with Jasmine. And they have been talking to Jasmine, and she's been venting to his wife about how much she misses Gino and how she wants Gino to give her another chance. So while Gino's out to eat with his cousin's like, you really need to give your marriage a second thought. And he's like, I don't know, man. I went to Vegas. I had a really great time with Natalie. And he's pretty much just trying to move forward. And his cousin was like, well, wait, what about Jasmine? And Gino was like, well, what about Jasmine? And he's like, well, Jasmine has been telling my wife she misses you like crazy. And Gino was like, uh-huh. And you can just tell from the sound of Gino's voice, he's not really buying it either. And that's exactly what he told his cousin. He's like, all that sounds great and all, but who's to tell that she's not going to get back with me just to do the same thing again? Like, I personally, just from what I've seen, I don't think Jasmine, if Gino was to give her another chance, I don't think she'd be able to 100% let go of Matt. Like, I'm sure Gino would make her, like, change gyms and be a lot more involved in everything she does to make sure she didn't go running back to Matt. But I highly doubt she'd be able to fully let him go. And I don't think Gino believes that either. She's been gone for 4 months. She seems fine where she's at. I mean, every time she's around Matt, he literally puts a spark in her eyes that we never seen with her when she was around Gino. There's people that bring out the best in you, and there's people that will bring out the worst in you. And I just think Gino and Jasmine bring out the absolute worst in each other. They're toxic as hell. They have no business being together. For some reason, Gino's cousin's trying to convince him that he needs to give Jasmine one more shot. So Gino is very skeptical, and he said that he's wary, but he's definitely going to give it some thought. And then we see Jasmine, and she's over at Matt's house, and she's sitting inside like this sauna. She's got a face mask on. She's get all nice and pretty because she ain't seen Gino in 4 months. She wants to show this man what he's missing. So she gets in this sauna, and Matt shows up after taking her dog to the groomer. And they're sitting there, and she's like, yeah, so I'm going to go talk to Gino. And Matt was like, well, what are your expectations? She's like, well, if he wants to work things out, I'm going to get back with him. And Matt seemed pretty heartbroken over it. And even Jasmine seemed heartbroken over it. She's like, this is my marriage. This is what I got to do. Even though it seems like she feels like this is what she needs to do, it feels like this is not what she wants to do. Like I've said time and time again, at this point, I just feel like Jasmine and Gino are both milking the hell out of this storyline to try to get as much airtime as possible, because this storyline should have been wrapped up a long time ago. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little disappointed because I was hoping we were going to see like the aftermath of like Gino and Jasmine at the last resort. But I'd rather see, like, honestly, if I'm just ready for them to move on. I'm ready just to see if we're going to see Jasmine. I just want to see her with Matt. And if we're going to see Gino, I just want to see him with Natalie or dating other people, because with Jasmine, it's the same toxic cycle, and it just gets old after a while. It's the same thing over and over again. It's like beating a dead horse. Like, how much longer are we going to drag this out for? And Matt and Jasmine both became very emotional because they're realizing if Gino was to say, hey, come back home, that Jasmine would have to be done with Matt. But like I said, I don't think either one of them would be fully done with each other. I just feel like Jasmine would come up with better ways to hide what she's doing with Matt. Okay, so later that day, Jasmine agreed to meet up with Gino. So Gino pulls up at this park first by himself, and he opens the back of his trunk, and he's going through all this stuff that he brought. He brought a dirty-ass coffee pot. I guess Jasmine bought this for him for his birthday, and he couldn't even go and clean it before bringing it back to Jasmine. And he brings it back and tells Jasmine, like, hey, the coffee pot is dirty as hell. He couldn't even go through the work of sitting there and cleaning the coffee pot before giving it back to Jasmine. So he's trying to give that back to Jasmine along with a whole bunch of her clothes. He said he didn't bring all her clothes. He didn't bring a good amount. It seemed like he brought her at least like 20, 30 different nice outfits and brought her this coffee machine. And while he was sitting there showing off to producers everything that he brought to give back to Jasmine, he just couldn't help himself. But then Jasmine's perfume just started wafting towards his nose. He was smelling it, and he's like, you know what? These clothes smell just like Jasmine. I'm like, this freaking weirdo. Okay, like, did you really have to point that out? And it's like as soon as he smelled her perfume, it just took him to a total different place. He sat there and started smothering his whole face into different articles of Jasmine's clothing. Like, he was going all in. Like, he wasn't just sitting there like smelling it for a second or two. Like, this man was like sitting there going on and smelling her freaking shirts for a good 30 seconds. And I'm like, okay, even I'm starting to feel uncomfortable at this point. It's like, are you really okay, dude? You keep saying you've moved on, but as you're sitting here giving her belongings back, you can't do it without giving it a nice whiff. And I can't even imagine what he's doing with like any bras or panties she might have left back at the house. He's probably making sure he saves those for himself. How would you feel if you were Natalie? And this man's like, okay, yeah, I'm in an open marriage, but I'm going to go back and tell her that I have another girl I'm seeing. And then he goes back and returns her belongings, but then sits there and smells all her stuff on national TV. And you got to watch that, and all your coworkers and everybody that knows you're dating this man has to watch that. Oh, hell no. I would be so freaking embarrassed. Jasmine pulls up in this vehicle. She doesn't have a license, so she had to get dropped off. And they drop her off. She gets out. And she was all dolled up. You could tell she was really trying to look good for Gino. She walks up to Gino, and both of them were acting super awkward, which I can completely understand. It's been 4 months since they've seen each other, and they're both just waiting for the other person to say the first word. And neither one of them were willing to, so they just sat there in awkward silence for a good 2-3 minutes. Neither one of them were willing to look at each other or say anything to each other at first. And then finally, I can't remember who broke the ice, but Jasmine asked Gino about where he's been. And he's like, I've been in Vegas. And honestly, Jasmine at this point, like, it's none of her business. Like, she keeps acting like she has a right to this information. And I mean, he doesn't have to give you any of the information at this point. I mean, you haven't been sharing any information with him the past 4 months. I mean, if I was Gino, I would be willing to ask questions too. But I guess it's pointless when you pretty much know the answers to all the questions. So she's like, okay, so you were in Vegas and you met another woman. So how did it go? And Gino was skeptical. Like, he was really stuttering over his words. Like, you could tell he almost was like, it was mid. I don't know. Like, he keeps saying like he had such a great time. He kind of enjoyed rubbing it in Jasmine's face. But if you really were, then why didn't you just like pop off and start being like, oh my God, it was amazing? Like, he really had to think about how he was going to answer that question for a sec. He's like, yeah, we had a good time. But even then, he still kind of downplayed it. Like, compared to how he described his time with Natalie to producers, where he's like, oh my God, it's the most amazing time I've had in a long time. To Jasmine, he's just like, yeah, we had a great time. You know, it was nice being around someone that I'm not constantly fighting with. And Jasmine, I think that was kind of like a knife through her heart, because he took a little stab at Jasmine, saying like, hey, we can't get along whatsoever. And Jasmine was like, well, I'm glad that you can finally get what I couldn't give you. And she pretty much told Gino, like, I thought we were going to work on our marriage. Like, I love you, Gino. And she went through the whole spiel that she always goes through every single time they fight or she acts crazy. She comes back and says, I love you, Gino. I love you, Gino, please. But Gino, like, too much damage has been done for him at this point, and I think he just sees through the BS. He's seen so many times that Jasmine lied in his face in the resort and then watched the season and went back, and I'm sure he could kind of pick up on her body language, because I know me for sure, like in the resort, like when she was talking about how she didn't like Matt and stuff, you could read it all over her face that what she was saying is not how she is really feeling. And so Jasmine was begging Gino for another chance. And Gino was like, I don't know. I just really don't believe you this time because you've been lying to me. And she's like, no, I haven't. And he's like, yeah, I got the receipts. And she looks shocked. She's like, wait a minute, what receipts? Because Jasmine's one of those people, she will deny unless you got the receipts in her face. And I think even if she had the receipts in her face, she would still probably find a way to get out of the situation, deny the receipts, and probably say they're like AI or something. So Gino's like, yeah, I got these receipts. And she's like, what receipts? And he's like, you've been talking to Matt since 4 months before the resort. And she's like, how do you know that information? Just had like a deer and headlights look on her face. She didn't know what to say, because I think Jasmine's a very calculated person, and she usually kind of thinks about what she says before she says it and plans like what she's going to say. But he caught her off guard with this one. She did not know how to react or what to say to this. And he's like, yeah, you've been talking to Matt. And she's like, well, how do you know that I've been talking to Matt, like actually cheating? I've just been talking to Matt because he's been giving me rides to the gym. But the thing is, Gino said she was having phone calls with him that would range anywhere from 2 minutes to 60 minutes. And there was a lot of days where she was talking to him on the phone for long periods of time. So if he's giving you a ride, why do you need to talk to him on the phone for an hour every single day? Like, if you need a ride, you just call and say, hey, I need a ride, and talk on the phone for a few minutes, and that's it. And I'm honestly shocked she had this much time to talk to Matt. Like, where was Gino during all this when she was sneaking off and talking to Matt all the time? And so Jasmine was like, yeah, I was talking to him, but you don't have proof that I was cheating. But here's the thing, Jasmine can't keep up with her lies. That's the thing about when you tell the truth, it never changes. But with a lie, people can't keep up with it. And Jasmine went from saying, oh, well, that's not true because I didn't start talking to Matt until December. And then he brought it up again, like, you've been talking to Matt at least since December. And she said, no, I didn't. I wasn't talking to Matt in December. Literally, Jasmine, rewind the tapes. Literally a minute before, you just said that you were talking to Matt in December. You didn't say you were talking to him in a sexual way, but you definitely said that you had met him at that point or talking to him. And then not even a minute later, when Gino brings that same thing up, she goes around and says, oh no, we weren't talking yet. It wasn't until January. She could not keep up with the timeline. She kept changing it over and over again. And Gino, I think, saw right through that. And he's like, you know what? I don't want to talk to you anymore, because he could just see that Jasmine was lying through her teeth. And Jasmine was like, okay, if you don't want to work on this marriage, I'm not going to beg. And I think even Gino was shocked, because I think Gino expected Jasmine to break down and cry like she did every other episode anytime they had a disagreement, and storm out, throw shit. But this time she was calm, and I think that's because deep down she didn't want this to work out. She just wanted to look like she gave it her all in the end. At this point, they should take this last conversation as closure and just go their separate ways until the tell-all, which I'm sure the tell-all is going to be off the chain with them. But that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys think about everything in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.